Okay, we need to graph p of x equals x squared minus 4x plus 1. So we need to find the vertex, the x-intercepts, and the y-intercepts. So the first thing I would do, and especially when it's in this form, is I would find the vertex. To find the vertex in this form, let's do negative b over 2a. So we're going to be using ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So this tells us where our a, where our b, where our c is. We can see this equation is already in this form. So we can see here that a will be 1, just the number in front of x squared. B will be a negative 4, just this number in front of x. And c will be 1. Okay, so let's do negative b over 2a. So negative 4 over 2 times 1. Notice it's negative whatever the value of b, and so it's always just going to be the opposite of b. So since it's negative 4, in this case it will be a positive 4 over 2, which equals 2. So that tells us, in our vertex, that tells us our x-coordinate. Now to find the y-coordinate, we're just going to plug that 2 in. So we'll have 2 squared minus 4 times 2 plus 1. So 2 squared is 4. 4 times 2 is 8 plus 1. 4 minus 8 is negative 4. Negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3. And so this will be our y-coordinate of the vertex. Okay, next let's go ahead and find the x-intercepts. So if you remember, the x-intercepts are the place that this graph is going to cross this x-axis. So that tells us then on the x-axis, we know this is where y equals 0. And so to find the x-intercepts, that's really what we're going to look at, is where y equals 0. So, or in this case, it's p of x, so we'll just put 0 in for this. So we'll have 0 equals x squared minus 4x plus 1. So we can solve this a few different ways. We can solve by graphing. We can, or actually, I guess we could solve by graphing, but I wouldn't recommend that. We can solve by factoring. We can solve by doing the quadratic formula, or we can solve by completing the square. And I think on this one I might do completing the square. The reason I'm doing that is there's no variable in front of x squared, so I think that will be pretty quick. But it really doesn't matter what you choose. Factoring doesn't lend itself, but you could do either completing the square or the quadratic formula. So let's subtract 1 from both sides to solve by completing the square. So I'm going to just write this x squared minus 4x right here. We know this now equals negative 1. Now to complete the square, this is where we have a plus blank, and then we need to add that same number to the other side to keep it balanced. So the number that we're going to add, I'm going to just scoot this a little closer. So equals negative 1 plus blank. The number that we're going to add is we're going to look at what is half of this number, so negative 4 divided by 2, and then squared. Okay, so negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. Negative 2 squared is a positive 4, and we'll add that to both sides again to keep it balanced. Okay, next we're going to factor this part. X squared minus 4x plus 4, we'll just get x minus 2 squared. Hint, remember that it's always just going to be whatever half of that middle number is. And then this equals 3. Now, we solve by completing the square. We've got to get rid of that squared, so we square root both sides. We're going to have a plus or minus here, so we'll end up with x minus 2 equals plus or minus square root of 3. We add the 2 to both sides, and so we end up with x equals, we could even put that 2 out front, plus or minus the square root of 3. For this one, I would probably find decimal answers because it will make it easier to graph. So if we do 2 plus square root of 3, we're going to get 3.73. If we do 2 minus the square root of 3, we're going to get 0.268, or we can just do 0.27. So those points will have 2 different points. So we'll have a 3.73, and remember y is 0, and then we'll have a 0.27, and y is 0. Now the y-intercept is going to be a lot easier because the y-intercept is where x equals 0. So we can just take this x squared minus 4x plus 1 and put 0 in for x. We'll get 0 minus 0, oops, 0 plus 1, and so our answer will just be 1. So our y-intercept is just 0 for x, 1 for y. So now we can graph this. So we've got 2, 1, 2, 3, negative 3. Here is our vertex. We can see because the number in front of x squared, or just the sign in front of x squared, is positive, so we know our graph is going to be facing up. We'll have a point at 3.73, so about right there, and then about just right there. 0, 1 is our y-intercept, and so we'll have that. It doesn't ask for it, but typically it will ask for an axis of symmetry. So that would just be the line right through where x equals 2. Notice that's the x coordinate of the vertex. So x equals 2 would be our axis of symmetry. And that would be that graph.